guest is John Schwartz. He is the Director of Marketing at Seacrest Village Retirement Community in Encinitas, and he's been there about 4 years. Seacrest is a nonprofit, multi-level retirement community. John is there and here with us today because he has a master's degree in gerontology and loves to speak on aging successfully. So with that, I'd like to introduce John and ask you, how did you even get interested in gerontology and geriatrics and aging successfully when you're young?
Well, first, thank you for having me. This is
a thrill to have you.
Yeah. How did I get involved in this field? So when I was in college, my grandfather was unfortunately diagnosed with dementia and Alzheimer's. And I could see his decline on a weekly and even monthly basis. And as we know with this disease, it doesn't just affect the person with the disease. It's my grandmother, it's
the whole family.
Family, caregiver, it's everybody. And through my weekly, monthly visits, I could see what amazing care he was getting. My grandparents were fortunate enough to have significant resources to pay for this quality care. And I couldn't help but think, what is everyone else going to do that don't have the financial resources and maybe don't have family support what my grandfather had? And I think that's what really motivated me to want to work in this field.
Was he able to stay at home through his...
He was fortunate to stay at home for the rest of his life. And
really?
That's awesome.
For almost 10 years.
Wow. That's quite a story, because that's not easy to...
No.
Even if you have the resources, sometimes not always the decision-making process. That's pretty impressive.
We were very fortunate, though. Yeah.
So you went to... where did you do your undergrad?
I went to Indiana University.
Indiana University.
The greatest school in the nation.
Well, wait a second. Yeah. I'm going to argue a little bit because I know where you got your master's degree from University of Southern California. Yay, go fight on. So tell us a little bit about what a gerontology degree entails.
Sure. So gerontology is the studying of aging. And what does that mean? I think we're all aging at this very second.
We don't have a choice.
Right.
Well, yeah, the alternative isn't good.
Right. But it was a wonderful experience. What my emphasis really was at USC was, how can we reduce, as a society and as an individual, reduce our chances of going to the hospital, being admitted to nursing homes, or those higher level of cares, assisted living and so on. And what we found, and through my just experience of working, is it doesn't take all that much. Small interventions as installing a grab bar in the shower or next to the toilet, taking out rugs, trip hazards. These little things can really make a big difference in preventing hospitalizations and nursing home visits.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a similar experience. My mom had vascular dementia and had a 12-year journey. My dad had had multiple strokes and heart attacks and was confined to a wheelchair. And they were moved once when I was not able to be there. And I got there, and my dad's TV is there, and his chair is facing the TV, but the bathroom's back there. And so by the time he'd get up and try and get to the bathroom, number one, he never made it. Number two, he fell multiple times. And when I asked my brother why the TV wasn't here so he could be facing the same way as the TV and the bathroom and have a straight shot, it was like, well, the cable connection was there. I'm like, well, they make longer cable cords, right? So once we moved it, it was like a no-brainer. But it's like you said, it's the little simple things. It's not big issues.
That are not all that costly.
Exactly, exactly.
And your brother's calling in right now to challenge that assertion. But anyway, I digress and do a whole different...
So you ended up at Seacrest Village. Did you end up there for a specific reason? Can you tell us a little bit more about the community?
Sure. So as you mentioned, I think in the opening, Seacrest Village, we are a not-for-profit, multi-level care community. So what does that mean? That's that we have independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing.
Oh, okay.
Additionally, we have a home care division and an adult day center for people with mild cognitive impairment. What got me interested in working there, we've been around for 75 years.
Wow.
Here in San Diego County, which I don't know of any other community that's been here that long.
I can't think of, yeah, that's a long.
We, being not for profit, we are able to subsidize the rent for many of our residents over the years who live with us and run out of money throughout the course of their stay. And I just think
That's huge.
that was really something I'm so proud of, to be a part of this organization.
That's huge.
And in terms of just location-wise, you just let the people know.
We're based up in Encinitas as well as Rancho Bernardo. We have 2 campuses, but the main campus is in Encinitas.
And how long has the Encinitas campus been there?
We've been there for 30 years.
Wow, it looks brand new.
Well, it had that major, about what,
Yeah.
6 or, and it's right across from the YMCA.
Right.
So you just, one of the things that we're really passionate about having you on the show was we were present last week at your presentation on Successfully Aging, and give us some of the highlights from that presentation, because it really hit home, I think, with that audience for sure.
And you got a lot of good questions, so
Yeah.
people were engaged.
Yeah.
Right. I hope so.
Yes.
My mother wasn't the only one listening. So there's a book that I read a few years ago, and this research has been around for several years. It's called The Blue Zones. And in the presentation I discussed what this author of the book, Blue Zone, his name is Dan Buettner, what he researched. And he discussed where in the world are people living longer and healthier than anywhere else. And he found these 5 different places. And the 5 are Okinawa, Japan, Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, and then one fairly close to us is Loma Linda, California.
Which just blows me away, but.
And so that was his question, is why are these places longevity hotspots? Why are these places have their populations living longer and healthier than anyone else in the world? And he went to these different locations and he studied what are they doing right. And he came back after years of living and immersing himself in this culture with 9 different commonalities. And so it's okay if can I share them?
Yeah, we want you to. Are you listening? Yes.
So number 1 is movement. And what these cultures did better than many others is they encouraged moving throughout the day, naturally moving, walking and taking the steps. We, I think, so often in America, and I'm so guilty of this, is we think we're in good shape because we go to the gym for 30 minutes and then sit the rest of the day. That's not what these cultures are doing. They're really moving throughout the day quite naturally.
They walk a lot of places instead of getting in a car.
And I think as we approach our 60s and 70s and beyond, I have seen so often through my experience, when you stop moving, it is really hard to get back going. So keep moving, keep moving, keep moving.
Force the issue, even if it's painful to some degree.
Right. Number 2, the second attribute of what these cultures did was they had purpose. And every day they woke up with something that they felt was their calling. And in Japan they have a word for this called ikigai, which means for the reason for which I wake up each day. And I think it's easy when we're younger to have a reason to wake up every day. When we're real young, we go to school and that's the alarm clock wakes us up and we got to do homework and whatnot. And then when we're a little older, we wake up to go to work. Now I wake up, my son wakes me up. And, but then when we retire and the kids are out of the house, what is that passion? What are we doing to wake up each day? These cultures in older age tended to have some purpose, which is just so critical. The third theme that this author came about was he called it downshifting or relaxing. And so there was no yoga or meditation, whatever it is that makes you relaxed, do it. It is so important
But take the time.
to take that time to relax and downshift. We live in such a world where it's so fast-paced.
Especially with our cell phones.
These cultures did not have cell phones generations ago.
So, I mean, just on the Loma, I mean, let's pick on Loma Linda because it's literally an hour and a half from here. I mean, and obviously you can go read the book, but what was in the Loma Linda, because it's surrounded by suburbs. I mean, that's what Loma Linda is. I mean, there's the hospital, but what's in Loma Linda?
Right. So I think what he found, what Mr. Buettner found, was that most of their population in Loma Linda they're Seventh-day Adventists. And what Seventh-day Adventists are, and I'm getting to that next point, is many of them, I believe, are vegetarian, and they go on long family walks very, very frequently. And the fourth theme is when you eat, to eat plants. Is these cultures tended to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and plant-based proteins like beans and lentils. If you look at many of what our American diet is, it's comprised of more meat and sugar
and salt.
And salt.
Having been very conscious of salt lately,
Right.
there is nothing in the whole world
Right.
that doesn't have salt
Right.
already in it.
But I love bacon.
That didn't make the list.
Bacon on anything, right?
But nutrition is so important
Yeah,
for
you're right.
for that long, healthy life. And then to that next point, the fifth theme is when we do eat, to eat only until we're 80% full.
Instead of stuffed, like
instead
everybody
of,
does.
Instead of till we're stuffed. And I don't really know what that means, eat until we're 80% full, but just slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Our portions here are
Gigantic.
gigantic.
But you think you're still hungry, but if you would just put it away, and
Right.
a half hour later,
Yeah.
it kind of, whatever is happening inside, it's filling up. So
Right.
you don't really need to wait to that last
And
bite.
it's interesting you say that, because I had once said to a nutritionist, because I've done a lot of that where, okay, your chicken breast should only be the size of your palm and all that good stuff. And I once said, well, but if I have more vegetables, isn't that okay?
Right.
And she said, no, it's still not okay.
Right.
Even though vegetables are good for you, it's
Sure.
still not okay to overeat them.
So, my mother never told me that, but
No, because she was trying to get you to eat your vegetables.
Yeah, no, I never had that problem.
number 6 is something that I'm really good at, and it's okay to brag. It's number 6 is to drink wine. Is these cultures, especially in Italy and in Greece, tended to drink every day, and they started
At a very young age.
Young age. But
And we are not supported by Napa Valley. Or any, this is
But there's a caveat to the wine, is it should be red wine, which is richer in those polyphenols, and there's some thought that it could be the red wine specifically in more the Mediterranean, where in Greece
Well,
and
and
Italy.
the wines when you're there don't have the tannins
Right.
and the acid
Right.
and the preservatives that they have in order to be shipped here.
Right.
So it's amazing what you can drink there, having
Right.
known, and not have a hangover versus
Yeah.
here and not feeling so good the next day.
But I imagine we can buy some of that. It's called Shenandoah red wine from Italy or Greece. You could get that same wine here in America. Number seven is, he calls it to belong. And did you know that belonging to some faith, some religion, adds almost 10 years to your life?
Having a belief.
It does not matter which religion that is, but if you feel connected to a higher being, to a spiritual power, you can add up to 10 years to your life, which is just amazing to me.
That's
I
a
believe that.
positive the
Right.
positivity factor.
Right, and I think just belonging to a community of people. Number 8, which is something that I think we all should strive for, is prioritizing our loved ones first. These cultures tended to really pay attention and be present most with their families and their closest friends. So often in our world that we live in, we're very kind to strangers that we meet, and then we go home and we take for granted our loved ones, but to really prioritize those people that you feel closest to.
Well, and I think we're starting to see a little bit of a shift again, because when I grew up, my grandmother lived with us. And then you saw families just spread out, and most of that was because of economic reasons for employment.
Right.
But now you're seeing the casita or the little bungalow on the property, and whether it's for the kids coming back home or the parents being able to live there,
Right.
you're seeing more of that family coming back together, I think.
And I think that's a long-term trend over the next 10 plus years. We'll
Yep.
see more and more of that.
Yeah.
Are we going to do it successfully? Because have we been so ingrained with separation and everybody doing their own thing? Because I always have the conflict, because what Patty and I do for a living, that we just see so much conflict constantly, and it's just so sad that people just can you just get along?
Right.
So I think we need a whole mind readjustment, and I think
Right.
everything that you've talked about, if people would just kind of take a chill and take a deep breath once in a while, we could.
Right. Well, I'll get to your point in 1 second.
Yeah.
I just want to say the
Yeah,
last
yeah,
one
please do.
is to be friendly, to surround yourself with people that share your same positive beliefs and optimism and nutrition and exercise and all that. If you can surround yourself with like-minded folks, it's been proven to be very beneficial. I want to also state there was a study that came out of Harvard recently that looked at a longitudinal study of 80 years.
Whoa.
That looked to see what makes for a long, happy, and healthy life. And they analyzed, the Harvard researchers analyzed blood work and education levels and job and resources and nutrition. They analyzed the whole litany of life. And can you guess the one thing that they found leads to a long, happy, healthy life? The biggest predictor?
Socialization.
It's relationships. So I think that we need to invest more in the relationships that we have. And that ties into aging so much, and that as we get older, it can be challenging. And if we invest in the relationships that we have, we'll have advocates and teammates to help us navigate this process.
And if you don't, or a lot of the relationships that you have pass away before you, then you have communities like Seacrest where you can establish new relationships, even though it's harder as you grow older.
Exactly.
But everybody's kind of in the same place and in the same boat,
Right.
which brings you together a little quicker than if you were living alone in your home and needing to get out to meet people.
Exactly.
But how do we accomplish that? Is it just through having these kind of discussions and getting people to open up a little bit? Because like anything else, you have to have the personality and the willingness to put yourself out there and vulnerable, so to speak, to meet new people.
Well, I think talking in the realm of aged people, our society unfortunately has discounted this age. Once you become 65,
Don't say that.
You're not there.
Well, at least say 70.
Very
No,
close.
too close. Say 75. No, okay.
We used to be in a world where the old were revered, and we sought their wisdom and expertise, and it's a more modern thing where we've discounted their wisdom. And there's a quote from a book that said that when we have any questions now, we turn to a teenager to help us fix the computer.
Or Google.
And Google, right? And I hope we go back to a world where seniors have a voice, and their expertise and wisdom count.
I know, I almost passed out the day. My dad always did crossword puzzles, and he'd finish like in lickety-split time. And one day he couldn't think of an answer, and he said, "Can you Google this?" And I was like, "No, don't make me do that."
Right. We're as a society, and 10,000 people a day in America are turning 70 years old. That's unbelievable. 10,000 people a day, and for the first time in history, there are going to be more 60-year-olds than 60 and up than people 15 and below, for the first time in history, in the coming years. Do you know what the average life expectancy was in the year 1940 or in the year 1900?
We do, because we came to your presentation. So you.
It was 40 in the year 1900. The life expectancy in America was about 47 years old. Fast forward to today, just over 100 years later.
It's transformational.
We've gained 30 plus years of life.
And we have more centurions now than we've ever had, and that age group's going to continue to grow.
And the thing to be positive and optimistic about is this age group is healthier, more educated, wealthier,
More active.
more active than previous generations.
So we're going to be a little more demanding.
I can't wait.
So that takes us into the whole housing realm, and you have a lot of great thoughts on that in terms of. You mentioned earlier in the very beginning, grab bar. We don't even like to use the word grab bars anymore.
Call them balance.
Balance
sure.
bars and things like, and getting rid of the rugs, and Patty and I are like preaching that all over too.
And just changing out light bulbs,
Light
because
bulbs
a lot of times they're not it's not easy to reach, and you certainly don't want them on a step stool or a ladder. And so, you know, one bulb will go out and they say, oh, I've got 3 more, and then the second bulb goes out, oh, I still have 2, and before you know it, it's down to 1, and they can't see where they're going.
So you have you have people, they all want to age in place or stay in their home as long as they can, and certainly with technology, as the way technology is progressing, with all the utilized technology to allow people to do that successfully is going to be fantastic. But then you have the socialization do we lose, do we not?
Are we going to hurt ourselves by
they're isolating
making
themselves.
it so easy to stay at home?
Because nobody, I mean, there's a great comic, he does a routine on how we used to open, when people came to, is that you who tells us that story?
It's hysterical.
When people used to come, when we grew up, when people rang the doorbell, it was, oh, a visitor, great, come on in, have dinner, just get the meal out. Now we have the ring and we have, who is it? Oh my God.
Right. What a hassle.
Yeah, you're at the door and you want me to
The comedian says, get the gun.
Right.
Everybody down.
Right.
Yeah, it's a great routine but it's a reflection on where we are today. So I'd like to get your thoughts on where we're going to go and
Where
the
you see us
community
going.
and aging in place.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking. I think it's a really important thought. And here's my prediction is, first, retirement communities here in San Diego County, they're really expensive. And as an industry, we have faced for, I think since our infancy, a big challenge of how can we make this affordable. Unfortunately, my prediction is that in the coming years, it's just going to become more and more expensive. Right now, independent living, you might spend $40,000 to $60,000 a year or more to live in independent living in a community, and assisted living is $60,000 to $80,000 a year, and so are we prepared for that? I think when we look at retirement communities, one exciting trend that I really like is we're going to see more communities that are niche specific, meaning that the model used to be you're old, so live under one roof and get along. I think we're going to now start to see more communities that are like-minded folks. Former teachers can all live together. There's even a community now, former NFL football players can all live together. Former actors or screenwriters are all living together.
Well, there's a Screen Actors Guild up in Woodland Hills, California.
Right.
That's been there a long
Exactly. There was I spoke to an Indian group recently, and they want to create their own community. So I think that's really exciting.
I do too. Because I mean, there's another senior community that's building on UC campuses.
Yeah.
And they're obviously attracting people who have been either worked or professors who worked on those campuses, and I think that's a fabulous.
And they want the shared communication between the senior and the student.
Exactly. And I think one challenge with the retirement community industry that we're all facing right now is we don't really get what our population, what our consumers really want. And I think through my experience working in this field, what people want at any age, whether you're a child or 90 plus years old, is you want purpose through your day. And I so often hear in our community, and in so many others, it's like a cruise ship. It's amazing. We have bingo, we have music, we have arts, we have everything that you could want to entertain that senior throughout the day. And it's nice for a time, but what that person actually, I think, really wants is to wake up each day and to have some purpose to give back to future generations, to contribute. And so I think that's also going to be a future in communities, is to really put in place programs and activities that help seniors contribute in meaningful ways.
So like volunteers for charitable causes, that gets you up in the morning and gets you going.
Exactly. Reading to children.
That's a great.
We're going to see seniors that are going to be still working. And so, and what is that going to look like in retirement homes, working in their 80s and 90s and beyond? So it will be exciting. It's a good thing for our county and country.
You see them aging in place? I mean, where's the trade-off?
Right. So aging in place, through, as you mentioned, through technology, I think aging at home, aging in place, that's kind of the sexy term now, will become more and more prominent. And can we age in place and still have socialization? Can we age in place and still have safe and a high quality life? And I think so. there are this thing called driverless cars, and they're starting now. It's now. This is not a thing in the future. These are really happening right now. That will help seniors stay connected to social opportunities when they're no longer driving, which is remarkable. We're going to have inside people's homes sensors that can monitor, did you take the medications that you're supposed to? Did you get out of bed and in and out? And people can monitor this from your own home. How many times have you flushed the toilet, which might be a predictor of
A UTI infection.
a UTI or some other illness that could be intervened much faster.
And of course, there's that trade-off because everybody wants to be independent.
Right.
Again, like with our parents, their comment was, "Don't treat me like a child. I can do this," even though we're looking at it going, "No, they really cannot do it." So again, invasion of privacy, monitoring. It's there's that balancing
Well, and
effect.
I think what was the most frustrating for me is, it took your parents to raise you and your siblings, and they seem to have no problem accomplishing that. And yet, when you try to help your parents, it takes a village.
Right.
It's hard to do on your own, and it's like, why is it so easy to raise a child and so difficult to care for a senior?
This current generation that we're facing is, as Tom Brokaw mentioned, the greatest generation. These are folks that survived World War II and grew up during the Depression, and these are extremely independent people that went through some hard stuff to their life. And going forward, I think as a society, we need to realize that for any future generation, when you make it to 60, 70, 80, 90 and beyond, you've gone through stuff in your life and you're a strong, tough person.
We just had the privilege of attending the honor flight dinner at the Fairbanks Ranch Country Club on Sunday evening, and that is a group that what they do is they put together World War II and Korean War veterans and take them to Washington, D.C. to actually see the monuments that they've probably never seen. And, they're not just men, they're men and women who fought the wars, and they're tough codgers, and they're, in their 90s and still fighting and still moving and still, telling stories. And it was interesting because one of the presenters was a news or a radio DJ, and, he said, these people didn't come home and say, oh, I can't do that without my my little security dog to get it done. They came back and they created the baby boom generation. They helped the economy grow. They helped, they got back to work. They came back and they got back to work.
Right.
But okay, so not that we don't have a lot of time, but the baby boom generation, our generation, you can claim had it much easier.
Yes, we did.
So where are we going to go with it when we're 80, 90 years old?
That's a
are
good
we
question.
going to be going, well, wait a second, I'm entitled? Or am I going to get up in the morning and walk and get up in the morning and not just be a pill taker? I mean, are we, I don't know the answers, but are we just going
I hope we're not pill takers.
One thing that I'm very excited about as the baby boom generation is coming about is that you understand technology and it's not as foreign.
We'll embrace that.
You will embrace the technology.
And we
that's
also
coming.
embrace, I think, alternative medicines and alternative ways of healing than our parents did. We don't go to the doctor and unfortunately or fortunately, whatever side of the fence you're on, and say, okay, they said I need to do this, this is a must. We question it. Where our
question.
I always question it.
Gherkin at your questions.
Where
And everybody does. Not everybody does that.
Where our parents said, okay, the doctor said this, I need to do this. So yes, I do question.
I think there will be remarkable breakthroughs in the coming 10 to 20 years for the baby boom generation to take advantage of. I think we'll see improvements in Alzheimer's and dementia, in cancer, and so many other ailments.
So the book, give us the book, and then Patty and I were going to talk kind of.
Well, a couple books that I love on aging are the Blue Zones, written by Dan Buettner, and there's another Being Mortal. Came out several years ago by Atul Gawande. And I think if you were to read two books on this topic of aging, I would really recommend those two.
That's Atul Gawande. How do you pronounce his last name?
Gawande.
We've had we've actually seen the KPBS special on that. It's pretty remarkable.
He's done wonderful work. Yeah.
Well, John, you are an expert in the field, and we're going to take the last couple of minutes to have you comment on our field of life that Patty and I have put together. And you know, Patty and I spend a lot of time working with seniors in their journey, and we don't call it a transaction, we call it a journey. When the 89-year-old finally makes that decision, whatever triggered the decision to move from their home that they lived in 50, 60 plus years to move to a senior community so they can remove themselves from isolation and being in a house that sometimes the windows haven't been opened in 20 years. It's really frightening sometimes. So we put together this field of life where all the folks that get involved in working with and supporting the seniors, it really, you know, whether, you know, quote the expression, whether it takes a village, but it takes the right team and the right people to really do it successfully. So that's what we have here, and just a little highlight of it, we have the battery, which is a pitcher and a catcher on a baseball field, and life is going to throw you a curveball. Life is going to throw you change-ups, and how do you react to that?
Are you prepared to react to it?
Are you prepared to react to it? And we really have found that they just don't know who to call. Like ghost, you know, it's like, who do you call first?
Right.
And they make so many mistakes, and there's so much anxiety amongst the family that a lot of times they make huge, you know, they just don't know, and they're making mistakes in the sense of what really will allow that senior to age successfully. So we put this together in terms of all the people that get involved. And we certainly, you know, the senior communities are something that we want people, encourage them to go and kick your tires.
Right.
And they can come and visit you and talk to you, and they don't have to commit. They just need to know how it works, right?
I mean,
Be aware.
I think this is so witty and brilliant. And I love
you.
baseball, but
Well, not the sorry, Padres, but we want to. That was a dig on the.
But I think folks need to prepare and be proactive before they need any of these services. To keep in mind, have a running list of different agencies and organizations that are reputable, and to have these kind of in your back pocket. Speaking on retirement communities, many communities, I see in the visitors dugout, many communities have wait lists. And so, unfortunately, I get people calling on a daily basis saying, I need to move in today. And unfortunately, there's just not much we can do. And to be proactive is really critical. It's unfortunate, and I get it. Part of our life is we just don't really think about life at 80 or 85. Patty was saying we don't think about getting sick ever, really. And so, but it might happen, and hopefully it does happen, at least with the aging part. You get older, and to have these things in your back pocket and to be aware is so critical.
And even when you're prepared, there's always things that you possibly didn't think of. So even if you have all of this in place, there might be parts of this that aren't completely done or still need to be done, but if the majority of it is at least addressed, it's helpful.
Exactly.
So we encourage you to dust off that estate plan that you haven't looked at in 10, 15, 20 years, and call an estate planning attorney that works specifically in that field, so that they can help you. They are really good at navigating and know who to call in this space. Call, we like all kinds of dumb. Sorry, we are live. How do you turn this on? Oh, there we go. We have gone beyond a lot, which is great. I mean, we have no time. We're on Facebook Live. But it's really, you need to have a team with you. And so whether it's your estate planning attorney, your CPA, your financial advisor who you really trust, sometimes we really don't want the children involved directly because they may not always have I mean, we love our children, but you know, is that really the way to go? So, Patty, last comments?
Just be prepared. Planning, the old saying in sales is work your plan or your plan works you. So, and if your plan works you, it means you're going to probate and Uncle Sam's going to take a chunk instead of the family or or your charity or whoever you want to leave what you've worked really hard to accumulate. So you just have to be prepared.
John, you have a wealth of knowledge. So we'll give you last comment on the whole big picture here.
Well, I often hear seniors and people that I work with is their concern so much is what legacy am I going to leave, talking, I started with my grandfather's story, and before he was diagnosed and developed Alzheimer's, he wrote a book of his and my grandmother's story.
Oh.
And I think that's perhaps the greatest thing that any senior, any person can do, is to write their story down on some text and give it to their heirs.
Or videotape it.
Right, or video it. It preserves your legacy in such a wonderful way. So write your story down.
That's a great
Awesome.
That's a great way to end this show. John, thank you so much.
Thank you for
being,
having me.
Yeah, it's
Thank
been
you both.
fantastic. I think if anybody wants to have John come out and speak on this topic, they can call you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's really a cool
Thank
topic
you.
and really important. So thank you for joining us today on Facebook Live, Senior Stay or Go TV. Look for us on YouTube and Facebook. If you have any questions on senior issues, aging successfully, I think we've got a wealth of knowledge on TV. Thank you. Have a great day.